I find it interesting that she keeps going after President Trump, the greatest president in American history. And if they could maintain their composure, this isn't a circus, this is a hearing. I find it interesting she keeps going after Donald Trump.
This may look like another partisan clash inside a congressional hearing, but it's actually a stress test of institutional credibility. What's really being tested here is whether federal oversight can remain neutral when political pressure rises. This raises broader questions about transparency, redaction standards, and the boundaries between law enforcement and political defense. In this video, we'll break down how a procedural inquiry turned into a confrontation over accountability and what that shift reveals about the current state of congressional oversight.
Nadler's question has not yet been answered, but I want to start by asking that out of respect for the American public and the Epstein survivors, some of whom, of course, are here today, that we can have a transparent conversation and get the public the answers they deserve. I want to briefly direct your attention to two documents I'm hoping we will put up on the screen. In the first, an individual emails Jeffrey Epstein asking whether a woman identified as M was pro or civilian, and Epstein responds that she was a civilian, Russian, and fun. In the second email, Epstein writes to Steve Tisch about a Ukrainian girl, noting that she was, quote, a little freaked out by the age difference and stating that he would try to convince her not to return to Ukraine. He then instructs Mr. Tisch to call him, adding, I don't like records of these conversations. So I'd like to ask a straightforward question that really is either a yes or no answer. Do these emails constitute credible evidence, not proof, but credible evidence warning further investigation into whether Steve Tisch was involved in Epstein's criminal conduct? Do you think yes or no?
I'm not going to play a yes-no game with you, but I will answer the question to the best of my ability. As I said, we will look and investigate any case involving any victim. I'm not familiar, there were 3 million pages, of course, with that email, but of course, we will look into anything. The documents have been released, 3 million, the redacted versions, we left them open for all of you to come view. I believe you viewed them, if not, will you have some copies?
I'd like to.
But could I finish, please? I'm not being rude, please.
I only have 5 minutes.
No, yeah, and I only have 30 seconds based on your filibustering.
But you didn't give a yes or no answer, so let me just go further. Director Patel testified in this committee room that there was no credible information indicating that Epstein trafficked victims to anyone else. And glancing at the documents, that proves that's not the case. In July, your department issued a memo stating that it had conducted an exhaustive review of the Epstein files and concluded that no additional individuals would be charged. So I did go over to the Department of Justice yesterday. I would note that 400 and all our 35 members are in the House, and there's 4 computers. So it would take many months to actually have the time. I only had a few hours. I think the transparency argument is really kind of a sham because it's not really possible.
Whoa. Did you have to wait to get a computer?
It is not possible to really go in. I did, however, see a U.S. attorney information for the Southern District of New York indicating that there were additional survivors and probable co-conspirators. Other members of Congress have uncovered likely co-conspirators whose names were blocked out. Now, the Epstein File Transparency Act, which all but one member of this House voted for and the president signed, requires the department to release everything except that it needs to be redacted to protect the victims or an ongoing prosecution, which apparently there is none from the testimony we have received. I am concerned that this act has not been fully complied with. When Director Patel came to the committee, he admitted that up to 1,000 FBI agents had gone through the files and redacted President Trump's name from them. And it's pretty clear that what has been transmitted from the FBI continues to redact President Trump's name, even though he is mentioned thousands of times in these files. So I think the credibility of the department in terms of complying with the act has been damaged. And I think the department's credibility has been damaged in other ways. I think we all saw the horrible video of American citizens being killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis. And I think how the department has handled these cases raises a lot of doubt about the department. State and local police in Minnesota got a court order to get access to the crime scene to be sure evidence would be properly preserved by federal agents. But they took the agents defied the court order, and in a departure from general policy, the DOJ is not collaborating with state and local law enforcement on these homicides. So I really think that is a disgraceful approach to the homicides of American citizens, and really does nothing to bring credit to your department. And, Mr. Chairman, I would yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
May I answer?
Attorney General can respond.
I find it interesting that she keeps going after President Trump, the greatest president in American history. And if they could maintain their composure, this isn't a circus, this is a hearing. I find it interesting she keeps going after Donald Trump. She doesn't say how much money she took from Reid Hoffman, did you? None. And nor did
Mr.
she
Chairman,
post
regular
anything.
order, please.
She
Regular
posted
order.
nothing on her X account, on her Twitter account during the Biden years.
Gentlelady.
And yet now, all of a sudden,
question
she's
asked.
going after
Committee will be in
Point
order.
There was no question
Shame
asked
on
of the
you.
Attorney General. She doesn't just get to speak.
Committee will be in order.
I have a point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Committee will be in order.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady can state her point of order.
When a witness attacks,
Not a valid point of order. You got to state.
She hasn't completed her point of order yet.
Gotta
Please let her
start.
speak, Mr. Chairman. Let's have some regular order here.
Regular order is you got to state the rule. And she
I
didn't do it.
am trying to make a point of order that the witness,
And what rule are you referring to?
without responding to a question, has attacked me personally. I think it's pathetic that she can't answer the questions and
First
instead
time
is
that
attacking
is not even close
members
to a
of the
point of order.
committee.
The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized.
The room had already been tense. Questions about transparency, questions about redactions, questions about credibility. But it was in that final exchange when Attorney General Pam Bondi leaned forward and declared, "This isn't a circus, this is a hearing," that the temperature of the Judiciary Committee hearing truly shifted. Representative Zoe Lofgren had pressed hard. She began by invoking respect for the American public and for the survivors present in the room. She referenced specific emails, messages involving Jeffrey Epstein and others, asking whether they constituted credible evidence warranting further investigation. She demanded a yes or no answer. Not proof, she clarified, just credible evidence. Bondi refused the binary framing. "I'm not going to play a yes-no game with you," she said, promising instead that any case involving a victim would be reviewed. 3 million pages, she reminded the committee, redacted versions made available, computers set up for members to examine them. A process, she insisted, had been followed, but Lofgren wasn't satisfied. She pointed to testimony from Director Patel. She referenced a Department of Justice memo declaring that no additional individuals would be charged. She questioned whether the Epstein File Transparency Act had been fully complied with. She raised concerns about redactions, about names, about presidential references, about credibility itself. And then she pivoted to ICE enforcement in Minneapolis, invoking a video, a court order, and accusations of federal agents defying state authority. In that moment, the hearing was no longer just about documents, it was about trust, about whether the Department of Justice was honoring the spirit as well as the letter of the law, about whether oversight was meaningful or merely procedural. Bondi's response cut through the noise. "I find it interesting that she keeps going after President Trump," she said. She called him the greatest president in American history. She questioned Lofgren's funding connections. She pushed back not just on substance, but on tone. "This isn't a circus. This is a hearing." That line landed like a gavel strike. Because beneath the partisan sparring, something deeper was unfolding. Congressional hearings are meant to be arenas of accountability. They are not courtrooms, but they carry the gravity of public judgment. They are where elected representatives confront executive officials, where transparency is tested, where process meets politics. Yet what viewers witnessed was not merely a dispute over documents. It was a collision between competing narratives of legitimacy. On one side, a lawmaker arguing that redactions undermine public confidence, that incomplete disclosure damages institutional credibility, that oversight requires more than access to 4 computers in a federal building. On the other, an attorney general asserting that exhaustive review has already occurred, that accusations are repetitive, that decorum is being sacrificed for spectacle. When Bondi accused her critics of turning the hearing into a circus, she was making a broader claim that oversight can devolve into performance. That repeated references to former President Donald Trump were less about evidence and more about political framing. But when Lofgren raised concerns about compliance with the Transparency Act, she was making her own claim. that the integrity of the justice system depends not only on internal review, but on public confidence. And confidence, once shaken, is not easily restored. The exchange that followed, points of order, interruptions, calls for regular order, only underscored the fragility of that confidence. The hearing briefly descended into procedural chaos. The chairman struggled to maintain control. Members spoke over one another. The language shifted from inquiry to accusation. In that breakdown, the American public saw something raw. They saw how deeply divided interpretations of justice have become. They saw how the same set of documents can be viewed either as evidence of thorough review or as proof of concealment. They saw how quickly discussion of facts can transform into arguments over motive. And perhaps most importantly, they saw how personal these battles have become. When Bondi accused Lofgren of targeting Trump, she was defending not just a name in a file, but a political legacy. When Lofgren pressed about redactions, she was challenging not just a policy, but the department's moral authority. This is the paradox of modern governance. Oversight is necessary, but oversight conducted in an atmosphere of mistrust can appear theatrical. Transparency is essential, but transparency filtered through partisan lenses can feel incomplete to one side and excessive to another. So what did this moment reveal? It revealed a justice system operating under relentless political scrutiny. It revealed lawmakers who believe their duty is to probe every omission. It revealed executive officials who believe their responsibility is to defend institutional decisions against what they see as unfair attack. And it revealed something else, that the American experiment depends on more than procedures. It depends on restraint, on respect, on the shared understanding that hearings are not stages for applause lines, but forums for truth-seeking. When Bondi said this isn't a circus, she was appealing to that higher standard. Whether viewers believe that standard was upheld is a question only they can answer, but the stakes are undeniable. If transparency laws are not fully honored, public trust erodes. If oversight becomes spectacle, faith in the process diminishes. If accusations replace dialogue, accountability suffers. In the end, this hearing was about more than redacted names or disputed memos. It was about whether the institutions tasked with delivering justice can maintain credibility in an era of perpetual political confrontation. That question lingers long after the microphones are muted. The American people deserve clarity. They deserve accountability. And they deserve leaders who understand that power is not a performance, but a responsibility. At Liberty Report USA, we will continue to examine these moments carefully, factually, and without distraction, because democracy depends on informed citizens. If you believe in transparency, if you believe in oversight, if you believe that hearings should illuminate rather than inflame, subscribe to Liberty Report USA. Support our work to expose the truth.